Before I can identify where is my body holding that anger? Am I clenching my jaw? Am I doing this in a meeting? Am I under the table bouncing my leg?
In today's episode of Men's Therapy Podcast, we have Megan McDonald,
a former executive who turned burnout into a somatic framework. She reveals how to stop operating on overdrive,
why standard wellness fails men, and how your body holds the real key.
We actually get more messages from body to brain than brain to body. So when I started to understand what my body was doing in moments of uncomfortability, for example, when you walk into a room and you're like, these are my people, or you walk into a room and you might feel like a little bit of a question, that is your somatic intelligence. It's speaking to you. So it's a signal, and those signals is what I focus on in my work. We can interrupt the signal at the body and deal with it real time instead of going right up to the thinking mind, our intellect, to try to make meaning of it and solve it from here.
How do you know when something's off, especially when every other signal is telling you that you should be grateful? Hello, welcome back to the Men's Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Marc Azoulay, and I'm here with Megan McDonald. She is the founder of SomaQ, which stands for Somatic Intelligence Quotient, right? We talk a lot about IQ, we talk a lot about EQ, but she really brings somatic, which is the idea of knowing what your body is feeling and how it connects to your emotions, your sensations, and to your unconscious into the executive workplace, working with high-performing individuals. So whether you have a really intense job, whether you're a public-facing persona, or you have a ton of responsibilities, whether that being a family, an athlete, working on a big team, Megan is here to talk to you. And she used to be a really, really high-performing healthcare executive and has now rebranded and focused on helping people survive the system that she was in. So not only does she specialize in it, she lived it herself. So Megan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. So great to be here. I'm excited to see you, not in person, but excited to see you.
Yeah, it's great to continue this conversation. We met listeners at a men's work summit called the Big Ten Summit a few months back. So I'm excited to just get to know you. We really connected during that event, and it's really cool to just see your work. To see how you're actually out there affecting people and helping them build this SQ. So I gave my definition of it, but I want to, give the mic over to you. What is your definition of SQ?
It's body first, right? We have this nervous system that is connected by brain and spinal cord. So in the wellness world, we have bifurcated, right? Mental health, physical health. And so in my story as a burned out corporate executive, I became so dysregulated, meaning that I was experiencing things that people would talk about, insomnia. I had this weird skin thing happen to me. And so you go to the doctor and you test your blood and everything's fine. Well, everything's not fine. You know when it's not fine. And so through a very long unwinding process, I learned about healing from the inside out, but understanding more about the messages that the body sends to the brain. We actually get more messages from body to brain than brain to body. So when I started to understand what my body was doing in moments of, let's just say, stress or uncomfortability, for example, when you walk into a room and you're like, these are my people, or you walk into a room and you might feel like, I don't know what there's like a little bit of a question. That is your somatic intelligence. It's speaking to you. And so it's a signal. And those signals is what I focus on in my work. So it's really opening up this bi-directional pathway so that ultimately, and you'll appreciate this because of what you do, at least I think you'll appreciate it, is we can interrupt the signal at the body and kind of deal with it real time instead of going right up to the thinking mind, our intellect, to try to make meaning of it and solve it from here. So it's a partnership.
Yeah, I think that's critical. And there's so many threads to pull on, but I want to zoom in a little what you said in the beginning of the issues that you were having, right? You said you had a skin issue, right? You had like all this stress, insomnia. And I feel like a lot of guys listening that I work with and you work with, they have those, right? They look at their bank account and they're like, I'm fine, right? They live in a nice home. They live in a good area. Their kids are happy. Like from the external side, not only are they fine, they're often objects of envy, right? People want their lives, but they know something is off. So I wonder if you could dig into that, whether it's from your story or from client stories of how do you know when something's off, right? Especially when every other signal is telling you that like you should be grateful. Right. I hear that from a lot of my guys. You should be grateful for everything you have. So why are you complaining, or why are you having a bad time?
I really want to normalize this. This is serious stuff, because I think especially for men, they're the ones that the expectation is that they're the provider. They fit so well under the umbrella of this productivity culture in which I lived, and it ate me up and swallowed me whole. And so when I had a great bank account too. Like that's really great, isn't it? It's really nice to have, lots of money coming in and being able to take the vacations. And I guess I would sum it up by saying this, something is off when you're starting to think something is off. And it could be, I'm lacking energy. I'm not as motivated to go to the gym. I'm starting to have questions or doubts about maybe certain things that I used to be good at. I mean, these are like in the caverns of our psyche, but beyond that, just the physical manifestation of what I would call burnout is insomnia is a big one. It's the waking up at, sometimes 1 and 3. Usually I see a big pattern of waking up between 1 and 3 a.m. The snapping at maybe your kids, or not having patience, right? Just feeling kind of jittery, needing more caffeine in the afternoon, maybe having some physical changes. For me, it was skin. There's tension. I was a chronic pain sufferer. That's a big one. So when we're experiencing life and we're not connected fully in our nervous system, we hold charges of things from the external, the things that happen out there, whether it's a tense meeting, maybe you're in the C-suite as an example. And in my world, it was the C-suite had, your chief financial, your chief medical, your chief nursing, your chief strategy, all the chiefs. And though they're a team, they still have competing priorities, right? You need to make money, but you also need to care about people and care about your patients. And so just the innate culture of that priority and the performance and the need for every single one of those roles and the responsibilities that each one of them had, just in that structure is going to cause some dysregulation, right? So it can manifest in so many different ways. It could be physical, emotional, right? Mental. It could be the anxiety, the chatter, I'm not able to shut my brain off. That's a big one. And I think in particular, men are also expected to be the problem solvers. And I adopted I would say, masculine persona. That's the way I survived. I had a lot of anxiety. I think most people have anxiety, but the anxiety then builds, and then you're not able to physiologically settle overnight. So that would be the easy one, right? I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm stressed. I get in my car, I turn up the radio and I distract myself. I get home, I've got kids, I've got whatever. And then I engage in my coping strategies to make all of that go away. And then I go to bed to try to rest. And that becomes challenging, doesn't it?
Yeah, I like that you named that. It's something I like to focus on, especially with men, because a lot of guys don't seek mental health treatment or coaching or anything until it gets really bad.
Why
until
do you
they're
think
like,
that is? I'm totally cutting you off, but I would
Oh,
love
yeah.
to hear why you think that is.
I mean, I think you're naming it. Like, I think men, I think especially American men, we're expected to have everything figured out or expect to be perfect at basically everything. And there actually isn't, as much as culture has progressed, there's not a lot of room for a guy to say like, oh, I don't know the answer to this question, you know, or like, I don't know what I'm doing here, or I'm new at this. So that puts so much pressure and so much isolation on top of the pressure that like it just blows up, right? And it blows up in often disastrous ways. Like maybe it's, you know, a horrible abuse incident with your spouse or your kids. Maybe it's a car accident. Maybe it's a bender, you know, maybe it's losing your job because you blew up at somebody, right? Like I think guys, so many guys are just these like pressure caskets that are like one step away from blowing up. And it's like, you know, as a guy, you feel that. And I think the only outlet we have that's like acceptable is like exercise, you know, like it's like, okay, I'm upset. Let me go exercise, which is helpful, but it's not really solving the problem. It's really good. I'm never gonna say never exercise. Exercise is critical, but like it's not really doing this emotional and maybe to your point, the somatic work that's needed to actually fix the problem. It's just a coping strategy.
Totally. So movement is medicine, you know, and I would say recent taglines that I have is the wellness playbook that we've been taught needs a rewrite. And I'm really passionate about this because you're bringing up such an important thing. The pressure that men feel to have the answers and to solve. And it's a culture, it's a productivity culture thing. It's a relational thing, right? There's often, you know, traditional roles, while like in the house, let's say traditional male, female roles, we'll just say. And as roles are shifting, where women, for example, like me, are in the workforce and we're ballers out there, we're kicking some ass and we're bringing our feminine wiles into the workplace, and we're showing up differently. We're showing up with a little more softness, right? Or trying to. And men are just like, I don't know what to do with that, right? So there's that too. And so I've become I've had a journey with men. It's not been great. It's starting to become great. But in this journey, I have realized so deeply how men cannot really be authentic. And that it hurts my soul because I know what it feels like to not be authentic. Because then, you know, in order to cope with all of that pressure, Marc, we create identities to mask, to survive, I would say. And if you think about the nervous system in all of this, the nervous system is actually designed to keep you safe. So if you are under this pressure and you're not able to, or haven't learned that expressing that you don't know something, or like, hey, let me take a beat. Like I'm feeling a little tense right now. And I need to like I need to go work that out so that I'm not coming in here bulldozing over somebody, or I'm containing it inside my body that it's going to come out in a bender, or it's going to come out in, you know, an abusive way. And so this nervous system tie is, while it's work to unravel and create capacity within the nervous system to be able to understand what it feels like to not hold, to not brace, to allow things to move. That way you're able to find your authenticity and be way more powerful and way more of a dynamic leader when you are leading from, and I keep doing this, like my heart, I would just say, you know, from this place of, oh, this is who I am. And I'm a man and I get to be in my masculine and I know what I'm doing. And it's okay for me to say, hey, team, I don't know what I'm doing. And you know what? That's freaking sexy too. When you're in a relationship and a man says, you know, I just don't know. I don't have the answer to that. Like when that's happening for me, I'm like, oh, well, thank you so much for telling me that. Like, can we like work on this and figure this out together? You know? So I'm on a mission, Marc. I'm on a mission to help men find compassion for themselves. And I think they can find that through embodiment, right? This embodiment work. And some people don't know what that is. I didn't really know what that is. But basically all it is, oh, I'm pissed. But before I can identify I'm pissed, where is my body holding that anger, right? What am I doing? Am I clenching my jaw? Am I doing this in a meeting? Am I under the table, like bouncing my leg, right? I mean, they're all things these things are what our bodies are signaling to us. And then if we start paying attention to it, that's becoming embodied. And it's not feminine. It's science. Like, it's really that simple. And I don't mean to sound arrogant about it, but it's frustrating for me that this isn't mainstream yet. And the underlying passion, my mission is I want to create a curriculum for the public educational system to be able to bring this work into the teachers so that they can start to understand, oh, I need to regulate myself, because they're having kids come in from all different kinds of experiences that they can't control. But what they can learn is, oh, that person's behaving that way, not because they have ADD or because they're an asshole. They're dysregulated in the moment. So if I have that working knowledge, then I'm able to help that kid. Hey, let's go breathe. Let's go do some somatic shaking, and let's go these are tools that work, and it resets and it provides that child in that moment, or the teacher, the executive leader, whatever you are, this sense of, oh yeah, I got this. I can handle this. It's cool.
I think it should be taught in school, right? I mean, because it's, like you said, it's not feminine. Because I think our culture, when you label something feminine, unfortunately, it makes it a lower priority. It says, oh, well, it's like optional, right? Like, you don't need that because it's feminine, because we still have a lot of this oppression shit going on, right? So I think it's just like being present, just like being present in reality and understanding what life and what your life is about.
Presence under pressure, Mark. That's one of the things that that I talk about, is what is your body signaling? How am I responding to what's going on? Who am I in that response? And why can I not sustain my performance? Because over time, if the out there continues to happen and this isn't normalized, then yeah, the pressure becomes a pressure cooker, and guess where that lives? It's in your body.
Yeah. So tell me, where does someone start? Because what I hear from a lot of my guys is yes, therapist question, how does that make you feel? And they don't know. And we've had a number of guests that have talked about Alexithymia, which is the inability to name feelings that a lot of men have, right? Where we have that label. And ask a guy and he's like, well, I'm a little hungry, a little tired, maybe I'm a little confused. But I don't think we are trained to have the same kind of awareness that I think the average woman is. So where do you start when you're starting from not just 0, but -10? You're starting behind off.
That's cool. That's fair. Yeah. And somebody recently told me, may have been a therapist actually, that on the, the emotional, so I have a little itch on my nose here. So on the emotional wheel.
The emotional wheel? Yeah. It does not work
the
for
emotional
men.
wheel.
I have a whole thing about that. It does not work for men.
That sucks so bad to hear that, because emotion, I believe years ago, I heard somebody say, I was actually in yoga somatic trauma-informed training, and the practitioner said there's no such thing as negative or positive emotions. They're emotions. That's it. But it was something men can only identify 4 on the wheel, as compared to how many are on the wheel, Mark? I don't know. So where do I start? How I start is moving a client through an assessment, and it's basically 63 questions. And this is part of my methodology. It's proprietary. It's called the NeuroSoma Axis. And so I have questions designed that I created that help me understand areas in the nervous system, in the body, that are basically in let's just say being hypervigilant or contracted. Let's just say that. So there's imbalance somewhere that is living in your body. And so what I do is I hone in on, I call it the NeuroSoma Axis. And so there are 7 points on that axis. There are nerve centers we have, there are energetic centers we have. And while that all sounds maybe a little bit woo-woo, it is science. There's no such thing as woo anymore. And so I will usually hone in on 1 to 2 of those nodes that either are heightened or they need support. And so I will put together a summary and essentially say, this is what your responses showed me. Let's review that. Does that make sense to you? And it is both exciting and surprising to me, the responses that I get from these pretty high powered people, I would say, right? Doing hard things. And like, for example, a chief revenue officer said to me once, I have been doing personal development work for quite some time, but I've never seen it like laid out like this before. And it makes so much sense. So what I'll do is identify the node. I'll say, this is where we start. And so if you're having tension, for example, or let's say your solar plexus, that there's a lot of tension that we hold right in our solar plexus, which is right at our diaphragm above our navel. And so a lot of times when we are stressed, we're holding tension there. There's a lot of tension that executives feel in their shoulders, right? We're doing this all the time. We're hunching forward. That's actually a somatic expression of anxiety, right? Moving. So it's little things like I identify the node and we unpack that. And it is an unpacking, because once you start working with a node, I actually every week, because I have a month program, a 4-month and a 12-month program. And so I actually have a leadership performance metrics system that shows what is shifting. So there's a lot of session notes and metrics post session so that the thinking mind can analyze like, oh, I see what we did there. I understand now. And then I provide homework and practices, and they're somatically based practices. So an example of that might be, okay, next time you walk your dog, do not take your earbuds, leave them at home, and do some micro meditation and even micro macro meditation. So that would mean taking a walk, looking down at the ground, identifying what you're seeing, hearing, feeling, right? The sensation of like rocks under your shoes, the crunch of the gravel, or maybe the whooshing of your pants as you're walking, the jingling of your dog collar, and then raising your eyes and looking at the horizon and noticing what you notice there. What are you hearing? What are you feeling? Can you feel the wind? Right? It's a way for us to start to connect instead of distract ourselves with, I have to work out my anxiety and I need to put my earbuds in and throw in a podcast like this fabulous one that they're listening to right now. And right. So it actually interrupts what they're thinking or not thinking about. And it is allowing this felt sense to allow them to come back to their bodies. And so then the next week it is, here's what you measured, right? Here's what we measured together. Here's the difference between week 1 and 2. And I'm measuring what's happening. Are you still in your head? Are you starting to feel some different emotions because you're realizing, oh, I don't have this all figured out? Where is tension showing up in your body? So that's a kind of a long answer to your question, but that's the start. And then over time, we get to see the shifts, and it's really, really amazing. It is my greatest joy to watch people. Oh, I'm realizing that I'm causing my own anxiety. And if I can just take a beat and do some breath work that you've, taught me, that kind of thing.
I like that, because it's taking like almost like a physical therapy or like an athlete training model, and applying it to nervous system regulation. Because I think, again, for a lot of these guys, you need results. We're results driven. and for something that's so, foreign to a lot of us, right? And like you said, maybe woo-woo, but the way you explain it, like, it's literally science, like we're skeptical about it. So we need data to be like, okay, this thing is actually working. I'm curious, when you talked about the different like body patterns and the nodes, are they consistent across most people? Like if it's, if you always have the shoulder thing, is it always anxiety, or are there patterns, or is it individual for each person? Like how's that whole thing work?
Yeah, that's great. Great question. Yeah, I was going to joke with you when you were talking about, you need results, and I get it, right? Because I might be in a, flowered shirt today, but, I like when I'm paying somebody for a service, I expect results. And what I've noticed in my journey of being coached is that, and being in years and years and years of therapy, wouldn't live without it, that there is no real like timeline or measurement. And I'm like, that's what's missing. And so I'm actually really proud of that. So I wanted to say that, and it works, which is cool. And it gives us information to be able to shift when we're seeing like, oh, this is increasing here. We need to move in a different direction, right? So it's a relationship and it's trust that I'm building. So you asked the question about, let's use the shoulders as a great example. So this is basically our cardiac node, right? It's our heart. And so when we are in relationship, whether it's with our boss or we're the owner of a company, our team that we're leading, our intimate partnerships, and we're feeling that tension here, it could be anxiety, but it also could be grief. There could be things that are emotionally happening with that person. Let's say there's a loss of a pet, or, their child was being bullied at school, or something like that. The body is actually holding on to what the mind is creating, right? And so I talk a lot about trauma. I'm trauma informed. I have PTSD. So I get triggered. So I have to do this work so that I'm accountable, right? For me and what I'm doing. Trauma isn't the thing that happens. It's the response to the thing that happens that is the trauma. And so I don't know, Mark, I'd be curious to hear your take on this too, but I have a feeling down the road that the word trauma might shift and change. I think we hear little trauma and big trauma and whatever. Trauma is trauma. We all have it, like whether it's childhood, whether it's significant, whether it's a car accident, it is what it is. And so that is also a normalized thing. And so if I'm holding tension here in my body, it's also, think about this physically, it's also constricting your throat. It's creating so much tension in the back of your head here, which is actually your brainstem. And that's our reptilian brain, right? And so there's all of this stuff is connected. And if we are really carrying all of that, we're not allowing any other signal into our system other than to protect. And we're not able to receive. So we receive less and we give less because we're constricted. Now, could you make the argument that grief can cause anxiety or anxiety can cause grief? Sure. I mean, this is a complex thing, but yeah, it's what is unique to the individual, where they're holding it. And then through not just somatic practices, but like guided visualization and meditation, which is something I'm also trained in, to help to identify, can you move with titration, right? That concept. Can you identify where this is and change it? You as the client can be an active participant in moving this trapped stuff out of your body. And let me tell you, that is so wonderful for that person to be like, oh, now I get it. So that's when the light bulbs go off like, okay, I'm feeling literally within 45 minutes a marked change in my body. And it's everything is consistency, you know that. So it's not a one and done kind of thing. And that's what a lot of people want, right? They want the instant gratification. They want to go to the gym and they will feel better if they punch it out or run on the treadmill. But guess what happens the next day? It's still there.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question about trauma, I agree. I think it's overused. I also don't think it works for men, because for a man to admit that he's been traumatized means that he's been like victimized, is how we think about it. Like somebody got one over on us, somebody hurt us, somebody won. And that is like very challenging to us, you know? So the word that I use a lot is conditioning, right? It softens it a little bit. It's like, yeah, you were conditioned by your childhood, right? Just like how a dog is trained, or you were trained a certain way. And I think guys can relate to that because it means that they can retrain themselves, to your point, you know? And that doesn't have to be this black and white hero, villain, oppressor dynamic. It's like, yeah, it just happened and now you get a chance to do it. So
thank you for that education, by the way, because I'm learning, right? I'm learning how to work with men and the language that works for them, because we don't speak the same language.
Yeah. And when you tell a guy that he has trauma, we go to like, okay, either I was in a car accident, I was a veteran, or I got molested. And if you're like not one of those three, we're like, I don't have it, you know, because it's a different framework.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. But what I was going to ask you on that point, you know, and it's something that I've been fascinated with, you know, personally with my own, you know, healing journey and with a number of my clients, is this idea that you're talking about of emotions being held in the body, you know, and I've had a number of clients that have truly viscerally felt this, like oftentimes actually during a PT session after an accident, you know, or even if they, you know, maybe they're very overweight and they start exercising and start moving, and all of a sudden they have like shaking, right? They start crying, maybe they feel very afraid, you know, or they start having memories come back. And it's really almost like a psychedelic experience. Like it's really weird. It's very out of body.
Weird. And like, I get it. Has that, well, I can share like a couple of examples if.
Yeah, I'm curious of the examples and also like an explanation, right? Because I think for a lot of guys, unless you've experienced that, that feels like mystical.
Yeah, well, just guess what? Because we're trying to make sense of it. It's like, wait, this thing happened, and there's an awareness of the thing, right? There's awareness of a somatic release, right? You're having a somatic experience and a release. And so the awareness is there, but then it's like, well, I need to understand it. So I'm going to invite your listeners here to drop out of the analytical thinking mind for a minute and imagine being on a massage table, right? Massages are incredible modality to relax the nervous system. And I had an experience on the table once where, you know, that part of your neck that is, I should know the name of this muscle here. It's actually where your vagus nerve travels. So it's like along your carotid. And it's that thick muscle. And if you turn your head, I'm kind of describing this in case anybody's listening and not watching, but if you turn your head over to the left, it's like kind of a big muscle that sticks out of your neck, and they work on relieving stress. There's a lot of tension. Yeah, you get that. And so she was very gently working on that. And all of a sudden I took a deep breath and I just started sobbing. And while I was sobbing, and thank goodness she was actually a somatically trained massage therapist, she knew exactly what to say to me to not put me in my ego and like, oh my God, I shouldn't be right. I'm very prideful. Totally. I mean, you could argue, like I would argue that I have so much more of a male thinking brain than people expect me to, but I just immediately was like, I shouldn't be crying. That's ridiculous. And so that was an experience. So how to explain it, the psychosomatic emotional experience of that is, look, I'm not a clinician. I don't like, I'm not a neurologist. I'm not any of those things. But what I can tell you is in my 26 years of being in the work of connecting emotions with my body, it is the only thing that makes sense to me, like literally the only thing. So when there is something that is physically happening with me, there is always an emotional tie to it. Now, that can feel to a man like you are out of your mind. There's no way I'm going to, accept that. But what if you started to? What if you had a, let's say a right knee problem or a right leg issue where your hamstring is locked up or your calf muscle is whatever. So there are sides of our body that actually represent masculine and feminine. Our masculine side of our body is the right side of our body. And it's the giver side of our body. So when we're giving too much, we tend to see some injuries on the right side of the body. And this is starting to become pretty accepted, actually, in the world of PT. And when we're experiencing, like, I have a lot of left side body issues. Like the most recent one is I have I clench my teeth at night. And so I have this, tension in my jaw. Well, I am still learning how to receive. This is the receiving side of our body. And so typically where I have felt pain or have like even a structural issue, long-standing that's caused chronic pain, it's on my left side. Well, I mean, it's taken a long time for me to actually accept it. But once I started to study it, now what happens is, I have jaw tension, we hold, we clench. That is a way overnight, especially when we clench our teeth, we're expressing anger. So I'm like, what am I angry about? And almost immediately, I would say within a day, I can shift it. I can let it go. The other thing I want to share with you that I've watched and witnessed, as I'm a breath teacher as well. That's really the modality that is my love. It is the quickest access to the nervous system. So I use it a lot, and there are ancient techniques, but also modern ones. And so I teach them all. But when I started breath work myself, I started crying all the time. I'm like, what is happening? What is wrong with me? Like, what? This is ridiculous. And then finally, I would always feel better. I would just feel better. And I stopped questioning what it is. I don't care I don't care if it was anger. I don't care what it's grief. I didn't care what it was attached to. What I cared about was getting it out of my body so that I could be more open and free and less reactive and sharp. I used to be really sharp around the edges. It was like, like a dog being smacked enough with a newspaper on the nose. You're either going to shrink or you're going to attack. And so I think it's a practice, Mark. It's a practice of, can you be open enough intellectually to allow your body to experience something and release something? And maybe you don't have to fully believe it, but if you try it, it's probably going to create shifts so that you can begin to lead how you want to lead with more energy, right? You have clearer thinking. So I don't know if I'm fully, like if you saw my office, you would see I have an emotional body pain chart. I have the Roby chart, where beliefs affect your anatomy chart. I have a chakra spinal nerve chart. So it's literally like a chiropractor created this, where every single one of your vertebrae is tied to an area, a part of your body, and the symptoms. So we're all connected.
It was, though. You named a bunch of things, right? PT is talking about this. Chiropractic is talking about this. You go to ancient modalities like, traditional yoga and like acupuncture, right? And like, Rolfing is a more newer one, but it's like this has been out there. And I think it's been suppressed, and it's just been like really dismissed for a while. But I do think that it's coming back, where now it's being more accepted by science and studied to be like, yeah, of course there's a brain-body connection. And these things that like now that we can prove it more so, I think there's something.
And I have a confession too, Mark. Like when I was creating SomaQ, the this was not something I was expecting to do. I was hoping to maintain my really nice 6-figure salary and benefits. But, the life had different plans for me. But when I was creating this company, I felt like it was less disruptive maybe, or less woo-woo to brand it as more science, because it is science. And so, of course, as I was like, because I know me, I wouldn't have wanted to consult with Megan from SomaQ. Like, who's this weird chick, So I have like a spreadsheet, like ginormous spreadsheet full of like bajillions of references around all of this work. So it's a pattern interrupt. It's a paradigm, And P.S., you said something interesting about, you said yoga. Well, do you know about yoga nidra? Have you heard of?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So have you heard of iRest?
No, that
Okay.
I've not heard.
So you were talking about trauma. So iRest is used, it's a modality that the Veterans Administration uses in working with and helping PTSD veterans. iRest, I was trained on iRest and yoga nidra. It's the same thing. Yes. And so I say that not to be a know-it-all. I say that because the military is using yoga, to help people recover and find resilience in their nervous system.
Yeah, and humans have been doing this for like thousands of years, right? Like it is part of our like healing traditions. It's always been there. You just need to update it for the culture, So, you mentioned a little bit about some of the outcomes. You've mentioned a couple of times, like lead how you want to lead. A way that I talk about with my guys is like be more efficient, like not have all this like tension and mental bullshit and like all these like knots, whether that be in your body, in your mind, or somewhere in between, just to be more clear. I'm curious if you could speak to that a little bit in more detail. It's like, what are the benefits if someone decides to embark on this journey? What are some of the results, right? I mean, what are some of the reasons why somebody would do it? Because it's hard and it's confusing and sometimes it's boring and sometimes it's really intense. Like it's not a light lift, right? It's a heavy lift.
It's slow and there's resistance to it, because if you think about it, I'll definitely get to answer to your question. But one of the challenges I have is, I'll ask the question, so do you know anyone who's burned out? And do you know 90% of the time, this is anecdotally, but 90% of the time I hear, I don't know anyone who isn't burned out. But moving them from that to, okay, I'm going to work on this, because it's, oh, wait a minute, then I'm going to have to do some things that I've not done before. I'm already uncomfortable. It's going to take more time. I don't have time. I'm already stressed out. This is new, blah, blah, right? And so the results will only arrive if you choose to actually, you choose you. You have to choose you. Like, I can't make you choose you. You have to do that. And some of the outcomes that I see is, I've been working at this job. This is not what I should be doing. Or I have been a complete jerk to my wife, or I want to explore, this is opening up more space in my thinking creative mind, right? Because we block our creativity when we're constricted. So if we're just getting up and do, go, like go make the bacon. Do you remember that story? Not story, it was a commercial, Dunkin' Donuts commercial back in the day. I'm aging myself, but it's like time to make the donuts and this guy's getting up out of bed and right. So it's like we live in such a small, shallow way a lot. We're not taking the time to discover what our true desires are. We're going to work and we're putting food on the table. We're planning the vacations for the kids, but like, what about you? Right? So a lot of what happens is, oh, I actually have needs and desires that are worth my time to explore. And also, I might be scared, it might be foreign, but I'm going to talk to my wife, or my partner about that. And like, this is important to me. So there's so many different ways. Like, I remember hiring a coach, and I thought this coach was going to help me with X, when it turned out to be completely the Y. Not something expected. So if someone's in chronic pain, which, by the way, is common, blood work is great, or there's an autoimmune disease, chronic pain, nobody can explain it. What do you think is happening there? How is that happening? Why is your body all of a sudden forming some rando disease that no doctor can explain? So as we unwind that, that's my primary goal, is really to address the core or the chief complaint, if you will. And then what ends up happening as the resilience and the body opens up and there's more of this like 2-lane, really nice flow. Just think about a nice 2-lane highway. Then other things can come in to be explored. And, sometimes it's, I need to end this toxic relationship. Or it is, I'm the toxic one, right? And it means a breakdown. I had a client last week who started sobbing, and he said, I said, what? So where is that? What's happening? He said, I need to forgive myself. I mean, it just gives me the all over chills that he could go there. And then he said, I don't know, like, how do I do that? How do I forgive myself? Right? So thus the journey continues, and I can help with that. And that's also the point at which I'm smart enough, I guess, trained enough to know, like, well, maybe this person needs a therapist and not a somatic practitioner, right? So there is that. And I think that's how you and I was most interested in talking to you, because I'm like, what is your take on, somatic practitioner versus therapist, right? Is there a way to work together? And I loved your response, because you're open. You're like, yeah, I think protocol or something that works for an individual could be talk therapy, or it could be a combination, or it could be not talk therapy, right? It just depends. And so I think it's my responsibility to know, when I'm kind of past the point of like, yeah, that's probably for someone who's trained on the psyche and not necessarily the body.
Well, I think combination is critical, right? And when I said, oh my guys, it's like, look, man, if you want to take this seriously, if you can afford it, if you have the time and the resources, like, get as many people on the team as possible, vet them well, and then make sure that we're all collaborating, which is something that we take, very seriously at MTO. But it's like the idea of like, I work with a lot of somatic people. We have a couple on staff too, where the number one complaint is that clients show up and they just want to talk, and like you're saying, they need to be in a place of like presence, of groundedness, of non-judgmental, to let these things flow, right? It's like you're cutting open a wound and you're draining the pus and the poison, right? It's like you let the energy flow. So I found that a collaboration works well, because they can talk to us, right? They can make sense of it. They can do all the analytical stuff. They can tell stories about their childhood, right? They can process it so that they can be more present for the body work, because the body work only works if you're there. And my bias, I think the body work is way more powerful, right? But you have to get the mind out of the way for it to be effective, So I think it does take a little bit of both to get there.
100%. And I think, for example, I've got all the yoga this and the yoga that, and that's actually what started to help me understand how active my mind was and how it was controlling everything and how it was creating these ridiculous identities that were pulling me away from who I really am. And like, I can finally say, I love myself, and we're all the same, man. Like, I keep saying this, I said this on the last podcast I was on, we are all the same. And it's so crazy to me, once we learn how to quiet our minds and feel in our bodies and work from that place, then it opens up. I think we said a different way. I was just talking about that. It opens up possibility and creativity, right? But if we're constantly in this mind chatter, this 800-pound gorilla, and we think that what we're conscious of is what is real, but there's so much that is subconscious. And I think our bodies, because we're receiving all of this information from the felt sense, that's what basically somatic intelligence is. And so if we can, receive that, and again, like I said in the beginning of our conversation, we interrupt the automatic flow from external thing happens. I'm going to go right up to my head and make a response or reaction. And guess what that is based on? That is based on a narrative, a story, a value system, a belief system. But your body isn't part of that conversation. So while this makes all the sense in the world to me and to you because we're in it, I think the question I have for you in the audience is, so how do we normalize this? Like, how do we mainstream this thing? Because you're going to benefit your clients more if they're learning how to be in their body.
Yeah, I think the only way is, you talked about that early education, but I think it's like getting guys to have real visceral experiences with this that are undeniable. So I recommend a lot of my guys actually start with like retreat experiences or start with something intense, right? That's actually going to whether a psychedelic retreat or a meditation retreat that's like designed to kind of break you, just so you know that there's something there, that there's like something worth committing to. And then you can slow it down and go step by step by step. But I think for a lot of guys, we need to see that that summit to know that there's like value there. Especially with something that we're not aware of, and to your point, it's like, I think the body and mind, they want to heal. Like we, when you get cut, you heal, right? But it's like, there's so much bullshit in the way. So you need something like that to get the bullshit out of there. And honestly, for a lot of my guys, it's psychedelic work, frankly, like you get all that bullshit out of there and you have a healing experience that can be really scary, actually, right? Just like in wound healing is gross and intense and, serious and like really scary sometimes. So just because you don't feel good doesn't mean that it wasn't healing you. In fact, especially if you have a lot of tension, you have a lot of burnout, you have a lot of, trauma or physical conditioning or whatever you want to call it. Like that's what's going to come to the surface first, right? That's the loudest thing. It's going to be those anxieties. It's going to be those fears. It's going to be those horrible memories you have. Like that's your body trying to purge it. So if you have those experiences, whether through retreat or just in your life, if it's bubbling over, like call someone, man. Like we can help you with that. Like that's your body telling you and your mind telling you that there's like some work to be done here if it's not letting you live with ease. Because I think it wants to live with ease. Your mind doesn't hate you. It just gets hooked on things.
I agree. Like that's the other interesting thing you said, ease. This idea of receiving, right? For a man to receive. And that's an interesting conversation and really a whole nother podcast.
On a future episode there.
Yeah. There's a lot of privilege, we can talk about all of that. But what I mean is the act of, I am receiving someone's care, compassion, kindness. And it's so hard. And that it's interesting to hear you say, because I'm always very cognizant and conscious of, okay, got to be a little bit careful here because I don't want to have my clients have an adverse somatic experience where it's going to piss them off or scare them so much that they're like, well, fuck this. I'm not coming. I'm not doing this. Right? This doesn't feel good, but this is really interesting. I think for me, breath work, when I started doing like long journeys in my training, these are like 90-minute trainings, like every day. And I would see like the psychedelic stuff that would come to me and like the visions and all of the stuff. I'm not opposed to psychedelics at all. I can tell you that breath work can 100% be a psychedelic experience. I'm actually teaching, there's a local retreat in town. I'm teaching for a 90-minute session there. And it's going to be interesting because these are really creative people. And I think creative people sometimes think, well, I'm very in touch. I'm attuned. Like if I wasn't attuned to all of me, and I wouldn't be able to let all of this flow, right? So that's really interesting to me too, the dichotomy of you can be a high-powered productivity, male, whatever, police officer, firefighter, frontline healthcare worker, whatever you are, but you could also be a teacher, a writer, the ones that are like represent like creative and artistic expression and all that stuff. But even those, the other flip side of that is that there's a lot happening in them too. And when we get to work with the creative people as well, at least my observation is that it opens up other channels that they hadn't accessed before. So it is so powerful. And sometimes I get sad. I get really frustrated, and like, I really believe that we all need this. You can't just go to the gym or a yoga class. This is my favorite thing. Oh, you're stressed out. Well, just go download an app and do some meditation. How can you do that when your nervous system is wired and it's constricted and trying to protect you and keep you safe? Your mind isn't going to let you do that meditation. So if we're not working with our nervous system to create that resilience, that meditation journey is likely going to be very frustrating, and you're going to give it up. Meditation is amazing, but you need the foundational, nervous system reset, if you will.
And the reframe is like, if meditation is frustrating and annoying and boring and intense, then that means that you need to do more work, because like you're just like popping the hood on your car, right? Popping the hood in your brain and being like, wow, there's a lot of shit going on in there, right? Like meditation is supposed to that's what it is. It's not about like zenning out. It's about like just seeing what's going on behind the curtain. And if that's fear, anxiety, burnout, anger, regret, like that's really good information.
It's good information, and it's okay because we're all the same. We're all just trying to I really feel like, Marc, I've said this recently, we all just want to be loved, and we all don't want to be left, and all of the things in between, And it's interesting. I just want to latch on to what you said about the car. I was talking to my partner. We had a tough few days, and he knows how to work on cars. And I was like, and it's great, right? I know how to check my oil, but I don't know how to, get under the frame of the car and with my tools and get up in there. And so that's what this is. It's like, great. You can know how to check your oil, right? We can do enough to be like, the car will be fine. It'll be running. But eventually, if you're not doing all the other things to keep that car maintained, then what's going to happen to the car?
As we're wrapping up here, where can people find you online if they want to learn more about you and the work that you're doing?
Oh, thank you so much. It is soma-q.com. So Soma body, Q intelligence, so SOMA-Q.com. And I have a 30-minute discovery call, button, just click it, and we'll see how I can help you. And Marc, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Love to have the conversation. Love to have you on the show. Listeners, we're going to have the link to your website in the show notes, which is the description of the show. Check it out. The very least, do the consult, like get a chance to get to know Megan. She's a wonderful person. See if her system will work for you, because I do think like the more I can just like bang the drum of like men need to be more embodied so that we can be better men in the world. Like this is for a lot of us the missing component. And in some ways, if you were an athlete, or you're interested in sports psychology, or I don't know, you're a dancer or you're a yogi, like this is like the next step, man. Like if you're ready, love your body, this is the next step to take care of it. So Megan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Marc. And by the way, PS, like this can be actually really interesting, and you can come at it with curiosity. It's not all like, oh my God, you're going to unravel into this pool of conditioning. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're not gonna become like a gooey mess, because I think a lot of guys are afraid of that, right? You're gonna become like stronger. It's like sharpening your tool.
Totally. Thank you.
For sure. So listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And we'll see you next week, another episode of the Men's Therapy Podcast.